from an operational standpoint, so I think the people in itself is key. I know over the years, a lot of companies, right, a lot of organizations have tried to reduce workforce. And one of the things we also like to do is to see how we can quickly automate processes, right? And I know one of the departments that a lot of guys have tried to automate is the dispute resolution department, because interestingly, I speak from an agency banking standpoint, because I've been opportunity to do that across 3-4 organizations. And the interesting thing is, we think, easily, let's try and automate this because the process that we can automate and things can then move. But also, we always forget that I like to call them major stakeholders. These major stakeholders they're also trying to continually develop themselves. So for a fact, I think you need to invest in the team, your dispute resolution team. And when I talk about investment, I talk about, education. In as much as from a technical standpoint, all of the things I've said earlier, we can have a fantastic PRD to develop it. But at the same time, you also need to educate the dispute resolution team so as to understand and continually check for new patterns. Because interestingly, for everything you get to automate or you build, every day there are new patterns, people come with different ideas and they want to just beat the system. But from an operation standpoint, I think based on the number of customers, based on the number of merchants, I think you need to keep the team growing. I know a lot of people might not even be interested in this because how do you continue to keep that team growing? But the reality is, if there are no disputed transactions, chargeback would become something that reduces drastically, because as an industry, we are really not bothered about that anymore because we are then reduced. But the reality is that is not going to happen. For different reasons, transactions are going to fail. Customers are going to get debited. So you need to keep the team as compact as possible. Also, most importantly, the tech team, product team needs to understand the idea behind chargeback. I say a lot of things, we want to build every time, but the team don't even understand why we need to build this. So if you can have your team that understands that, you can set up your technical team to build putting in consideration all of these things I've mentioned. And also from the operations team, have that small team, but not too big, for dispute resolution. In terms of processes, so a lot of people think chargeback reconciliation or chargeback or dispute resolution stop at just responding to processors and saying, hey, this transaction was successful, do not debit, or this transaction was failed, go ahead and debit. There's the other part also you need to do within your team. You need to set up your chargeback reconciliation. And this is major because you then need to check after you must have responded to the processor. You need to go back to your statement of account and do that simple reconciliation between what you actually have said, which is a transaction is successful or failed, as against actual debit. Because also easily you can give a response and the meaning to whoever is attending to it or whatever the system they have that has been built is different. So what then happens is you give a response, but there's still a debit on your account. So in a very short period of time, you find yourself in a situation where this value is even being moved up from your acquirer, right? So that in itself is the tech team set up to implement these things we've said. The dispute team put together, educated to check for new patterns and continually just respond to all of this chargeback. Then there are dispute reconciliation. So there has to be someone that is available to do that dispute reconciliation, right? This, to be honest, this is one of the most manual processes today that I'm happy to commit to, because I've seen that automation would not solve this 100%, but you still need to put together a small team that then does that manual check on a daily. So tech, product, ensuring that that is built, implemented properly. Dispute team, ensuring that they are responding on the go. I mean, industry says 24 hours today, you have to keep it as small as that, right? Then also, then have that dispute reconciliation team, right? Part of things also that dispute team needs to do is they also need to check on the go or have a record of patterns, right? So if you're responding today and you have a particular max span that has disputed, say, 20 transactions within a day, you then need to keep a weekly record, right? What you then need to do with that is that record, you then need to go back to your system. There's no reason why some of those guys cannot be blacklisted today, right? When you start to see a pattern, you want to check with your merchants. Why is the merchant raising a chargeback of 20 transactions within a day? Why is the merchant raising a chargeback of total of 50 or over 50 within a day? So these are things that, that team then needs to put together, because like I said, you've implemented, right? You've done a lot of stuff, but also you said you then need to do that further check of how many transactions is coming from a merchant, why is this coming from this particular location? Like I said, there was a reason why we discovered it was coming from a particular region, because we were keeping this record. We started seeing, okay, these transactions will come from this person, this merchant, where is this merchant? This merchant is in North Central, for example, right? Why do we have a lot of, before you knew it, then you started seeing familiar names. So, I mean, the ideal thing to do is to start to blacklist some of those merchants on your system. So putting together this process, this will help substantially from operation standpoint. Yeah.